All right, so this is the last thing we're going to do tonight. We're going to watch a debate between this guy, Hypocrites, and Ivad. They're going to be debating Lolicon. And the reason why we're watching this is a follow-up to what we did on Monday night, talking about Lolicon and the legality of it, etc. We watched that controversial Vice documentary. So if you haven't checked that out, it's on Odyssey, archived. But we're going to watch this debate. Let's see who comes out on top.
The floor is all yours.
Yeah, hey James, great to be here as always. And Lolicon is a portmanteau of the words Lolita and complex. Lolita refers to the book, of course, by the Russian author, in which a middle-aged man sexually abuses a 12-year-old girl. It's one of the most famous works of fiction that involve pedophilic interests. And the word complex, which refers to a psychological complex, which could be defined as like a preoccupation or an obsession. So the word lolicon, the root etymology of the word, means a obsession with underage sex. In addition to that, and this was the one part I wanted to do a screen share for, so let me get that going. But anybody can also try this at home. It doesn't work on phones from what I tried, but it does work on a desktop computer. Hopefully you guys can see this. So if I go to google.com and in Google, I type in English to Japanese, and then in the English box, I type in lolicon.
Charlie says a lot of bad takes so far. I don't know. As that being the etymology of the word lolicon for Lolita?
It's going to translate into lolicon. But then they got these little two arrows here I can click to reverse the translation back. And you're going to see it translates back to lolicon, but below here it gives us a definition. And the definition says a noun, pedophile, and then below that it says sexual attraction to children. So Google defines the term lolicon as a sexual attraction to children. Now, how do I stop my screen share here? Stop video? No, that's not it.
Good old modern day debates. They always have technical issues, always.
Well, it's weird because it always like minimizes the thing. You do it on your side, please. So, okay, so the reason Google translates lolicon as a pedophile who has a sexual attraction to children, which is redundant, but I guess they really wanted to drive the point home, is because that's how it's used in Japan, where the term comes from. So if you could try this in Google. If you type in lolicon teachers, you're going to get some stories that come up in your results about teachers in Japan who are perving on their students, sexually molesting their students, taking photos in the bathroom, stuff like that. And these are going to be published on websites like japantoday.com.
So I just looked it up. The top story is Lolicon teachers a growing concern. Japan Today. Japan's lolicon teacher phenomenon hits a new high in 2013. So that's all the way from 2013. The growing concern one is from 2015. Why do some anime have lolly teachers? So there is some veracity to that, I guess.
Or TokyoReporter.com. These are Japanese media outlets reporting on the issue they're having there, which is the teachers who are perving on the real life human students that they have. And it's such a problem, they've had to come up with, a battery of like psychological tests that they give to people who are trying to become teachers to make sure that they aren't pedophiles. And again, those are real students that they're perving on, but they call them lolicon teachers. That's how they describe them. Now,
so when we watched the documentary from Vice, which is a little suspect, it's a little suspect because they don't present very much evidence, because honestly, there is no evidence. Nobody's done the studies. Nobody has done the studies, but a lot of the artists that are involved in creating lolly over in Japan completely cop to the fact that they have pedophilic attractions to children, And that's what spurred them on to do the art. Some of them were they started as commissions, etc., but they found themselves being attracted to the artistic representations of prepubescent children, etc.
We're talking about, for the purpose of this debate, is a little bit different. This refers to I guess you could call it a fandom, I don't know, but we're talking about the Japanese art form, the manga, anime style drawings of girls, and there's a range when it comes to this stuff. So there's the stuff that's fairly innocuous, and that maybe you're not necessarily a pedophile just because you like it. You know, you can almost even say it's wholesome. Like when I was a kid, we had Sailor Moon. That was a cartoon I watched as a kid, and I wouldn't say that you're necessarily a pedophile just because you watch Sailor Moon. Although if a grown man was watching Sailor Moon, I probably wouldn't let him babysit my kids just to be safe. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have just explicitly, graphically obscene depictions of children being raped and penetrated. This is pornographic material that is created for people to masturbate to. Again, it's drawings and animations depicting just graphic and obscene sexual activities involving children. It doesn't have to involve children, but this is what I'm talking about for the purpose of the debate. So for the purpose of this debate, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not going to argue about the stuff that's in the gray area unless my opponent wants to concede that the hardcore stuff is pedophilic. If he wants to say that stuff, the explicit, obscene material is pedophilic, then okay, we can have a conversation about the gray area. But you have to understand the entire axiomatic worldview that these lolicons hinge on is that nothing you do in the realm of fiction can be immoral or can matter in any way or can have any kind of real world implication. And so because of that, he can't.
And that is the claim that they make. They say because it's a drawing that there is no victims. There are no victims, therefore it's beyond reproach, it's protected, etc. That's what he's getting at. That's the argument that you'll often hear from people that defend Lolicon. I think we'll probably hear this guy. I'm sure he's going to get into that as well.
Say that the explicit drawings of children are pedophilic. So that's where we're going to talk about the explicit stuff. We're not going to waste our time in the gray area. Now, I've had the pleasure or misfortune of kicking the Lolicon nest once or twice on Twitter already, so I'm already familiar with the common arguments that they like to make to defend their repugnant hobby. And most of these arguments are so bad.
Now, I know who this dude is. I hypocrite. I know who he is. He goes very hard. He's also very I think he wants to ban porn outright, like any form of pornography he wants to have banned. So that is his perspective. He's honing in on Lolicon, obviously, because of its potential abusive nature and what it can do to people, rewiring your brain, etc.
That I'm not going to even bother talking about them right now. If my opponent wants to bring them up, I'm happy to respond to them then. But I'm just going to focus on, I guess, what I would personally consider to be the strongest argument that they have, which is they like to say how there's no scientific research which links liking these drawings to being a pedophile. Now, as far as I know, that is true. That research hasn't been done. A bunch of lab coats haven't gotten together and done the phallometric testing required to determine whether or not the people who like these cartoons are sexually attracted to children.
This is a weird thing because nobody's done this apparently, and even in Japan they haven't done this. Nobody has cross-referenced people that get arrested for abusing minors with their purchase history. Like sometimes it happens, or somebody that's gets caught for other, say real pedophilic pornographic material. They'll find lolly stuff in the mix or whatever, but nobody has taken it any farther than that. So when he says there's not really no research has really been done, that's true. There is no real research to link anything. But it's not because it's not happening. It's because the research hasn't been done. The absence of the research doesn't mean that it's not a possibility, I suppose. And I'm sure that's what he's going to get into. Tarami says, well, also because it's easy. If you want to ban something, you start by attacking the dodgiest thing first. Hey, that's very true. That's very true. From his perspective, 100%. It is the low-hanging fruit. But there is a subculture of people that defend it vehemently. And make, in my opinion, they make all sorts of weird, specious arguments. They're like, well, I know it looks like a 7-year-old girl, but that's a 5,000-year-old fairy. What are you talking about, dude? Yeah, they have all the features of a prepubescent child and they're getting raped, but, that's a 5,000-year-old fairy and it's just a drawing. I don't know if I really buy that.
Research hasn't been done at all, so it hasn't been proven in that exact direct sense that they are pedophiles. And of course, it hasn't been proven that they aren't. Of course, here in the debate field, we know that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. So just because that research doesn't exist doesn't mean that there isn't the link there. That just hasn't been explicitly tested in a research lab setting. Having said that, there is enough research.
Tarami says she looks 7, but she's a 400-year-old vampire was a joke on the internet 20 years ago. And, we live in strange times, Tarami. Lots of memes, lots of ironic posting has become people's real opinions. I mean, granted, like he says, like, well, I was attacked. I've been dogpiled by a bunch of lolly supporters, or lolly defenders, etc. Which seems like a weird preoccupation to go hard in the paint for. So, they could be memeing as well. 100% they could be memeing. But there's a lot of weird people out there, dude. And when I watched that Vice documentary about the people that made the art itself, the arguments that they made, they unironically made those arguments. Unironically said those things. So it's definitely something that is crossed over from irony shitposting on the internet. Kato says, I heard the kind of thing mentioned here, but I didn't get the meaning behind it before.
On this stuff, that as long as we're willing to use our own cognition and connect a few dots, we can show that, in fact, science does tell us that lolicons are pedophiles. And that's what I'm going to do for you right now. So the first thing you have to know is that studies on child porn, real quote unquote child porn with real children, these studies have shown a few things. The first off is that there's a high correlation between people who look at child porn and molesting children. Really high, in fact. As high as like 85% according to some studies. The second thing you need to know is that a child pornography offense, so somebody who's been sent to prison or convicted of a child pornography crime, it's been determined by some of the world's foremost experts on pedophilia that is a valid diagnostic indicator for being a pedophile. In fact, what they found is that looking at child porn is a better indication that somebody is a pedophile than actually having molested a child. Now, to the uninitiated, that might seem strange. You might think, well, obviously, if you molest a child, you're a pedophile, which I would agree. But to be a clinically diagnosed pedophile, you have to have a preference for children. So some people could molest children, but not necessarily prefer children as their sexual partners. Somebody who looks at child porn, that indicates that they almost certainly do have a preference.
Yeah, because there's a difference between people that are abusers because of a power dynamic and a sexual attraction. I think that's what he's trying to get at. Travis says, I assume what lolicon enjoyers are trying to achieve is that delicious oppressed status. Yeah, they're kind of including themselves in like the MAP territory, the minor attracted person territory of being like, well, we're just misunderstood. And isn't this a healthy outlet for our sexual impulses? Because a lot of them will just admit it. They'll just admit that they have an attraction to these things, and they're saying, well, this is a coping mechanism. This is for coping. Because if we don't have this stuff, then we'll offend. Which I think they're missing a few dots of connection there. Because, I don't know. I just feel like if you indulge in that kind of stuff, if you're indulging in that kind of stuff in any kind of serious way, that you may have deeper problems and you may offend. You may offend. It's actually the same argument. There's a famous public pedophile. His name is Todd Nickerson. He considers himself a virtuous pedophile. He was covered in the Atlantic, or is it the Atlantic? He was covered in some outlet, some magazine outlet like a few years ago. And there's an interview with him from maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where he talks about how he likes to draw comic books. and he basically draws like a Powerpuff Girls ripoff. And one of the things he likes about drawing these stories and drawing these characters is that they have the power, that there's no power differential, so that he feels comfortable, in a way, sexualizing them as a result of that. Like, he's like, oh, I hope we can get to a day where adults and children don't have to, like, have these power differences and it will all be okay. Like, kind of weird shit. Kato says, I thought it was just poking fun at the fantasy claims without the lolicon rationalization aspect. I'm pretty innocent. When I hear this lolly term, I think of the Schoolhouse Rock song about adverbs. Lolly, lolly, get your adverbs here. Tarami says, well, I think it might help some people from offending, but as a general rule, it's iffy. Well, that's the thing. Like, there's not a lot of research out on this stuff, and I would always err on the side of caution. When it comes to that. I wouldn't, I don't think indulging people's like kind of fantasies about wanting to have sex with children in any regard is probably it's not a good thing. Like, social stigma is there for a reason. It turns a lot of people off from actually offending, is the social stigma. So this movement to remove social stigma from it and kind of normalize it, and then you mix that in with like the trans children and the concepts of consent, like, well, who is old enough to consent to what? A lot of weird specious arguments that go on. And I think Lolly is kind of folded into it in some sort of, maybe tangentially, but I do think it's still there. It's still a part of it, in my opinion.
For underage sexual partners. Okay. So that's the first thing you got to know.
Oh, no, Trauma. I didn't think you were defending it. No, we're having a conversation. I did not think for a second you were defending it.
The second thing is that many people in all civilized Western countries have been jailed and convicted of trafficking or possessing this material that we're talking about, this lolicon material. So we have convictions for people here in the United States of America, in Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Sweden, and many other places. So we can really take this and put it into a just nice little...
Trauma says there's also a crossover with furries where it's a child that's also a fox. What is it? Yeah, no, we've covered that. We've covered that a little bit in the past. Big Paul and I have done some furry stuff. And that's like, you see it's like a grooming culture. I know that word is kind of overplayed right now in the current zeitgeist, but that's what it is. Like, it's a grooming culture about kind of gaslighting autistic kids into sexualizing themselves at a very young age. It's very strange.
Airtight syllogism where we would say P1, being convicted of a child porn crime is an indicator of pedophilia. P2, trafficking in this material we're talking about, the obscene depictions of children and sexual activities, is a child porn crime for which you can go to jail. C, conclusion, lolicons are pedophiles. And the last thing I'll add to that, and I'm just about finished my opening, but the last thing I'll add is that Ray Blanchard, one of the people involved in the studies on pedophilia, one of those foremost experts, he did a paper where he suggested changes to the DMS-V5 or whatever it's called, the thing that psychologists use.
Travis says, thank God I'm not watching this over my work VPN. Yeah, probably a good idea.
To determine how to diagnose these conditions. And he suggested that for diagnosing pedophiles, you should treat any kind of attraction to fictional or fake children the same way as you would treat looking at real child porn. So that was a recommendation from one of the experts. And there was also an Ask Me Anything on Reddit that a doctor did, a psychologist who treats pedophiles in Germany. He said he's been treating pedophiles for 9 years, and he did an Ask Me Anything. And somebody asked him, what do you think of this lolicon manga stuff? And his answer was to say that he thinks that it indicates you're a pedophile and it leads to increased likelihood to look at real stuff. So he said So
a lot of people, especially like people that have been arrested for pedophilia, etc., will have in their possession or around them works of art that are provocative pieces of art of children. I remember there's a Louis Theroux documentary where he goes to a prison that is nothing but sex offenders, nothing but like pedophiles in there. And one of the weird things that they found in one of the dude's bunks, one of the cells, was the guy had like a ballet recital, or like a practice for a ballet, like a work of art of these prepubescent boys wearing all like this ballet stuff. And apparently somehow that had slipped through the cracks of the guards and the professionals that worked there. And it wasn't until Louis Theroux asked him a question about it that alerted the staff that this guy had something like that. Because it's always about like kind of reconnecting with those feelings. Reconnecting with that stuff. Like you say, you're in fucking prison for this and you're still trying to find like an outlet for it. Because his excuse was like, oh, I just like art. I just like art. So I do think that there is something to pieces of art and the way people conduct themselves.
He thought it was like a stepping stone that pedophiles use that then will lead them to more likely to look at actual children being sexually abused. So that's my opening argument. Lolicons are obviously pedophiles. I rest my case.
He rests his case. Oh, where is it? Oh, no. I can't find it.
I rest my case. I rest my case.
There you go.
Thank you very much for that opening statement, LP. And want to let you know, folks, if it's your first...
All right, so he does a little promo here for another debate that's coming up.
Alex Stein and Hunter Avallone collide. This is coming up in the next month. You don't want to miss it. The topic is still being negotiated. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. And with that, thanks so much for being with us. Evad, the floor is all yours.
I love Hunter Avallone. Hunter Avallone, he used to be a trad conservative, and then within the span of like 3 months, his entire worldview changed, and now he does nothing but defend the most aggressive, progressive policies. A real honest actor out there in the field of YouTube punditry. Trembling says they need Marcellus Wallace's shotgun blast to the dick. No lies detected.
Thank you. I'm about to share screen right now. Just share the screen. Tell me when you are able to see it.
Yep. We can see it crystal clear.
Okay. Let's start off defining pedophilia, since we are talking about something being equal to another thing. The pedophilic disorder is classified under the DSM-5, and that's an objective definition. That's not a legal definition.
Like, you have to get this granular. You have to get this granular to defend Lolly. You have to get this granular. Be like, well, you know.
That is a clinical definition. You need to have attraction, recurrent attraction to a prepubescent child that has less than 13 years old. And some people doesn't know, but even if you are a minor, you can be diagnosed with it, even if you are 16, 17. It's clear that even though what he said is correct, there is one expert that say that, hey, maybe fictional children, they should be included in the diagnosis. What is actually put it forward and actually come out as the definition is that biological children should be the ones that make up for the diagnosis. Because when you put...
Yeah, so he wants to be very clear here. Biological children and socio-legal children are different than pictures. Different than pictures. Even if these pictures represent the form of a prepubescent child, it's different because it's not a real person. That's their argument. It's not a real person. It's not a real person. So you can't say that if you're attracted to drawings of prepubescent children, that's different than being attracted to an actual child. Why would you want to be this guy? I don't get it.
Put up like fictional children, what is a completely messy concept that you cannot put yourself behind it, and they'll show it more forward, is you kind of get anything, literally anything that you subjugate as a child. And sociological children, as a legal child or someone that is like 70 years old, does not classify someone as a pedophile because they are already post-pubescent. We agree on that, okay? Is for paraphilic disorders, as any disorder, there is two criteria that has to be met to actually diagnose somebody with it. And the first criteria is harm.
Exactly. He's gonna go through this very labored fucking dissertation about like, well, it doesn't create harm because they're not real, there's no victims, etc. Even though that hypocrite guy was talking about the psychological component of what it indicates in a person. What does it mean for a person to be into this kind of stuff? What does that mean about their sexuality and their proclivities? Like this is like autistic, in my opinion. Trembling says, I'm half watching Sin City: A Dame to Kill For in the background. I'm convinced this could have been good if it were made in 2008 or so and only did comic stories, not new movie only ones. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Because it has the talent. The talent is there. I remember being very disappointed. I haven't watched that in a long time, and I've actually been thinking about revisiting it recently. Actually, revisiting both the Sin Cities. I quite like the original one. Tarami says, I have the feeling this debate will be that LP will say that it's an indicator for 90 minutes, and this guy will say it's not technically illegal. That definitely seems like it's a possibility. That is the road we're going down.
The disorder must cause harm. In pedophilia, it is obvious that cause harm because child cannot consent to the act. So when the pedophile engages on it, he's
just being very literal about abuse. Very literal about abuse. But pedophilia is about the attraction to prepubescent minors, prepubescent kids. That's what the definition is. It's not just about like, I'm sorry, but this is horseshit. This is horseshit. It's not about like actually affecting harm. I mean, that's, I guess, a part of it at the end of the road, but it's about how you get to the abuse. How do you get to the harm?
Is molesting or raping a child is rape by definition, and dysfunction, as in you have to not be able to complete the intended situation, like what is supposed to be doing with sex, reproduction. You cannot reproduce with a prepubescent child, so it's dysfunctional. One other thing that is interesting is that on the Japanese side that goes about pedophilia, they stated that Lolicon is clearly misconstructed and not recognized.
Tarami says, I guess the question should really be, does this lead to harm rather than is it harm? And that's where you get into kind of a blockage, because nobody's bothered to do the research. Which I found very shocking. But the research, nobody's done it. They don't fucking know. It's like they're not interested in finding out. Especially in Japan. They're like, well, we don't know. You can't say that. The government hasn't done any studies, etc. Trembling says, I think the theatrical version of the original where the story moves back and forth is better than the recut one. I think as a movie, yes. As a fan of Sin City, I do like watching the longer versions. I do, but I think as a movie, yes, 100%.
As different and is misunderstood by the general public, but it is different. Now let's go defining Lolicon. First of all, I need to make a small correction on the definition. It's a slang word, so there is no objective clinical definition of it. But I want to say that these two characters right here, there's 9-year-old and 8-year-old, they are not lollies. Regardless, they are young, stated young. They do not look like a lolly. So the lolly is an aesthetic. It's not a...
Yeah, so this is supposed to be an 8 and a 9-year-old. A 9-year-old, this one's the 9-year-old. This one's the 8-year-old. So they'll have all the facial features, and then it seems like they have giant breasts, but this girl from the waist down seems very young. So this is how they kind of get around the arguments. And it's also curious that this girl's face is cut off. Because they generally look very young. Very young.
Not an age number that you just put on a character or a title. because of this difference of age and what is a lolly, you can be considered a lolicon for somebody that's older than you. So that obviously set it apart from being a pedophile. The pedophile need to be at least 5 years of age gap of the person, higher.
A pedophile needs to have at least 5 years of an age gap. Yeah, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. I don't think it has anything to do with whatever age gap it is. It has to do with like physical characteristics, features, prepubescence. There's no required age gap for that. Like, you can be 15 years old and be attracted to 6-year-olds. You're a pedophile. You could be 12-year-old and be attracted to 8-year-olds and be a pedophile. I mean, come on. Tarami says, to be fair, almost all manga-style women look very young. You can fairly easily extend much of these arguments to all of manga. No, I agree. They often do. I mean, even I Hypocrite brought up the example of Sailor Moon, right?
And there is a source. What is a complex? Complex is a obsession, like he said. That's correct. It's obsession, infatuation, and it is not necessarily sexual. You don't need to be sexually stimulated to have a complex. This is an example of somebody saying that they love their brother. They're not saying they want to fuck their brother. They're saying that they want to.
Oh, so he's saying that the fans of Lolly are not sexually attracted. They may love them. They may have feelings towards them, but it's not necessarily sexual. They can just feel like they're big brothers, big sisters.
Have a good relationship. They love their brother. It's just an obsession they have because they really fond of their brother. And there you go. You can have lolicons that are not necessarily NSFW about it. And that's how you get a sexual lolicons. They are of course hair and a minimal type, but they exist. So it's fair to notice it. So what would be lolicon scientifically? Here's a paper. There's a peer-reviewed paper that classifies attractions towards cartoons, especially in Japanese media, as fictophilia. You can call it many different names, as tunophilia.
It's fictophilia, guys. It's fictophilia. It's a sexual attraction to fictional children.
As shandiophilia, fictophilia, but generally that's how it is classified scientifically. And in anime, we know that pedophilia is completely different as Lolita complex because Lolita complex is a completely subjective and vague terminology. Now,
Lolita complex is subjective and vague. I don't think so. I don't think so. He's going to make the hebephile argument. Oh, there's a difference between pedophiles and hebephiles. Hebephiles, like, they like 15-year-olds because they have the mature characteristics of a woman, but they just like it when they're young. So that's totally different. Tarami says, I think there's some small truth in what he says. Some small number of these people probably are attracted to the protectorship, daddy issues, if you like. Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm sure that's a component of it. It's probably a component of it even for the people that have lascivious feelings or salacious feelings towards the drawings. That's probably true for a lot of people that consume this kind of content, whether or not they're offenders or not. I think that's probably part of the kink. It's part of the thing.
Well, let's go to the main arguments. Goho Lolly Lolly Baba. This is a character called Shuten Doji, and she's based off her VA, her voice actress. Her VA is called the legal lolly in real life because she's short.
Yeah, a legal lolly. She is an older woman. She's above the age of 18, but she looks like a child. She has the features and characteristics that pedophiles are attracted to. Legal lolly. Even the term legal lolly should be like, oh, legal lolly? What does that mean?
Just like Shuten. She has the same exact height, and she has the same features. The difference is Shuten is obviously cartoonified. And about age of the characters is just, don't mind you, the first character to ever be called a lolly, to be designed as so in 1979, was a character that is 18 years old. So you see, it's not just a very, very heresy.
So it's just very semantic. He's just going to get deep into the weeds of semantics about their ages. About their ages. It's not necessarily about their ages. It's about the depiction. That's really what it's about, honestly. I mean, it's a fictional character. You could say how it's however old you want it to. You could say it's 18. You could say it's 400 years old. You could say it's 7.
Exception. And it's not just me pulling up a character and say, oh, this dragon lolly has 9,000 years old. Many of these are based directly on petite women. But since my guy here, he posted sexualized depictions of a character that is 15 years old canonically, I will...
So he got a screenshot. I hope the stream's okay. All right, there we go. He got a screenshot. This is I Hypocrite. This is the guy he's debating against. Are you frying chicken, baby? Haha, just kidding. You make a lot of noise when you pee like that. So it's a joke meme of Sonic the Hedgehog being sexualized that he posted as a joke. And he's going to say like, well, this is, Sonic's for kids. Sonic's for children. So you posting this is very hypocritical. It's very hypocritical. How old is Sonic? Even in the lore, how old is Sonic? I bet he's at least pushing 35.
Will say he does not care about age, so I'll proceed to the next argument. Proportions. Lollies are not necessarily prepubescent looking. So
Tarami says, I think the argument is even that Sonic is not legal. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, how old is Sonic? How old is Sonic? Sonic's not a representation of a prepubescent child. He's not. Especially not in that picture. If you want to have these girls looking like they're fucking 26-year-old supermodels, nobody's going to have a problem.
So if they are not necessarily prepubescent looking, they cannot, even if you think of them as real life, they cannot be diagnosed you as a pedophile. Even if you put the pubescent character in real life, you wouldn't be diagnosed as a pedophile for them. So even if you don't believe...
And also, he conceded at the top of the argument that he was not talking about the gray areas. He was not talking about like the questionable areas. He was talking about the most extreme stuff. And if you don't think there's the most extreme stuff, there is. I'm not going to look it up on stream at all. But there's tons and tons and tons and tons of lolly mangas of young girls from the ages of like 6 to 12 being raped, etc. That is a thing. That is a real subgenre of manga. And that's what that's what the I Hypocrite guy is arguing against. That's what he's making his argument that is pedophilic. Tarami says there are things that are off limits even for Nightcap. Yeah, images of young children being raped, even if it's just a drawing. Yes, and we all gotta have our lines.
That life in fiction, reality, you need to like exactly what you like. In both cases, you still wouldn't believe that all polygons are pedophiles.
The body shape of Lolita in creative works. In the case of creative works, the body parts are deformed to make it easier to distinguish between a girl and a boy, which is difficult to do in reality. For example, the standard body shape of a young girl is usually a straight vertical line with a small torso or a squid belly, but by combining this with a larger lower body with an undulating waist like that of an adult woman, the character can be made more feminine while retaining her youthfulness. Yeah, you're trying to... I don't know. That seems like deceptive. Maybe it's just me. Travis says you had to go for the worst one for an example.
And that here we get the definition that clearly states that lollies have pubescent characteristics. And this definition is not coming from me. It's coming from the biggest site on Japanese media and lolly art.
He's not. His contention is not that there's not different types of lolly or things that are considered lolly. He's talking about a very specific subgenre of lolly. That's what he's talking. He said that in his opening argument. But I guess these are pre-prepared. These opening statements are pre-prepared. I believe they go into just a conversational back and forth after both of the openings.
Fictive. And this style of creation is very...
Okay, so what are these? Are these also lolly? What is he gonna say?
No, that is dates from the very, very first lolly drawings from the 80s from Ushiyama Aki and Hideo Azuma. Here's some examples of clear lollies that can be based off around petite adults. There is a whole section of Javiavi, that is basically pornographic actress, that they are classified as lolly in real life. Why? Because they are very short and they are petite. And to show you more,
yeah, and the people, the argument is that like people are attracted to prepubescent features. Like this is not like in support of your argument, or at least a counter to what he was saying. At the very least, Tarami says, "Well, I'm on another list." Oh boy, we all are now.
showcase what's the differentiation is. I'm going to do this. I simply put the real life people through the AI, and you can see how they are perfectly matched with many lolly or average lolly.
So he put these pictures into an AI to create a anime representation or a manga representation. He's like, look, they look like kids here too, but this isn't a kid. Just looks like a kid. Come on, dude.
Lolly characters.
We're not talking about actually dating these women. We're talking about people that masturbate to them. Thinking and treating them as if they are they're children.
So why do people like lollies? There is many reasons. First one is simply that the range of attractions is wider in fiction. That
The range of attraction is wider in fiction. Oh my goodness. They like Taibu dynamics for shipping characters. CSA victims use it for coping. Yeah, so that's the child sexual abuse victims use it for coping. That's another one of these great arguments they like to bandy about, apparently, is that kids that were molested, they like to look at lolly so they can cope with it. They can cope with the trauma.
You have a distasteful for really, really, really big-breasted people in real life because it looks ugly for you. You may find it better in fiction, in anime, because they...
Yeah, so if you find women with giant heaving breasts... If you find women with giant heaving breasts disgusting, well, don't worry, guys. Don't worry. Lolly, they got small boobs. Travis says, someone think of chill CSAs.
are made to look perfect and symmetrical.
Oh, someone think of the child CSAs. Sorry, I got it.
Same way it can work the other way around. Second point, they like taboo shipping dynamics, and that's completely fine. Third point, CSA victims use it for cope. They haywire their trauma with it. They cope with it. Another point, they can feel represented in self-inserting the lolly. That's actually a great deal of people self-insert themselves on the lolly character, not on the abuser in this case. And like the I Procket said, pedophiles can also like it. Like the very one that he stated, they can.
So in the Vice documentary, they have a reformed pedophile that they interviewed that said lolly was part of the gateway into him abusing children. Like, it started when he was a kid. He knew he was a pedophile. He gets into college. He's able to buy whatever he wants to buy, mangas, lolly. And the lolly inspires him to become an abuser because he can't get what he needs out of just jerking off to pictures. That's the claim the guy made. Tarami says, also a classic, but someone who's a victim is helped. You guys like that, right? Argument. Yeah, no, I know.
Project themselves onto it, and that's completely something that also happens. I'm considering this. I'm not saying that all lolicons are not pedophiles. And people can just like lollies platonically, like the asexuals that I cited, but they are, of course, the minority of the minority. No, but they look like children. Bro, they do not. Because they look more like aliens children. And
they look more like aliens than children.
if you trying to say that is an excuse that they look like how they look, so
because they are not the perfect picture depiction of a child, that means you don't associate them with actual children.
can look off their bodies. You like this Wojak lolly over here? No, nobody finds that beauty because we do not like the body for the body. Is not an excuse.
He's like, do you like this Wojak child? No, you don't. You like a lolly with a beautiful face. What kind of argument is that? Because he's just saying like, well, the features themselves don't really matter. It's more about the personality, more about the face. That's what we like about it. That's not the argument that I think you're making. You're not making the argument you think you're making, I would say. Tarami says, explains a few things about the X-Files, though. Hey, now.
We like the whole complex thing. We like the moe.
I missed something, too. Did he call Mulder's sister an alien? How rude.
Of the character. Here are a few citations. He said that there is no studies about it, but there is studies about it. There is
Jesus Christ, how long has this guy been talking? Like, this is quite the opening argument.
Many citations about it. And this is the first one. There is no claim to support that the existence of Lolicon or engagement with such content encourages cognitive distortions. This is another report that was looked into by the Danish government, and they simply come out to say that it does not provoke the people to engage in child sex abuse. These are very, very interesting one because this one was made in pedophiles to see how they can cope with pedophilia without acting.
However, many users with exclusive pedophilia indicated that they were unable to satisfy their sexual urges using these techniques, with some opting for more inventive ways of coping. Forum users discussed seeking out pornography from cultures who are typically youthful looking, with one member stating that they find Asian men more appealing and another preferring pornography depicting Japanese women dressed as schoolgirls. Lolicon manga or anime material, a genre of Japanese cartoon depicting female children in an erotic or pornographic manner. Oh, so even in this thing he's citing, says what the other guy said. Was also mentioned to be useful by a number of users. The equivalent of depicting male children is called Shotokan, as were pornographic stories that some had written themselves. No, this is called, what's the term? There's a term for it. It's like kind of it's fantasy, obviously. What is it? I can't remember the term. There's a term for it. It's about like this idea that you're actually kind of encouraging and inviting the behavior, inviting the feelings by promulgating this kind of stuff, especially if you're like writing like pedophilic fiction, etc. That's what you actually find on a lot of those virtuous pedophile sites, that they will write stories about having sex with children, and it's protected speech. So they always kind of lean on that. They're like, well, we're not offenders. We just like to think about it. Tarami says they'll cut back to a video and call the moderator and I, hypocrite, will have guns in their mouths. Internalization. That's definitely part of it. There's a specific term and I can't think of it. God damn it.
On it. And one of the things they tried is giving them Lolicon. And they noted that specifically the exclusive...
Hold on. I didn't finish this, sorry. One user described the doll they had made from children's clothing that gave them a sense of companionship and belonging. Just very healthy shit. Very healthy stuff. Just like we were talking about with the parasocial relationships of delusional young men that think that they're fucking dating e-girls. This example highlighted the need for individuals, in particular those with exclusive sexual interests, to ease the loneliness they feel and the difficulties they face in finding safe outlets. Oh shit. I don't know. That's heavy.
Pedophiles, the ones that can only be attracted to children, have difficulty to cope with it. So if it was pedophilia, this could not possibly happen. Simulacra. First, we need to understand that virtual child pornography is something that's very, very broad, and it includes petite women as well. Loli is simply a simulacrum, not a representation of something that is real, but
it's a simulacrum. Okay, it's just a simulation. It's not a representation of what's real. It's your mind's eye version of it. It's your mind's interpretation of it. How is that better? How's that better? Level of simulation. Number 1, a faithful image or copy that is a reflection of a profound reality applied to virtual child pornography, drawn child porn. Number 2, a perversion of reality, an unfaithful copy that masks reality. Virtual child porn made using an identifiable minor. You see, they're going into the victim thing. Like, what is a victim? What isn't a victim? So I guess this person's copying to the fact that if you have, like, realistically drawn child porn, like more realistically drawn, that it is actually child porn. Is that what they're saying? Trying to draw the distinction here. An absence of reality, something that pretends to represent reality with no actual representation taking place. Virtual child porn that is indistinguishable from an actual minor. A simulacrum, no relation to reality or replaces reality. Loli hentai. Okay.
Something that substitutes completely what is real. Legal and moral is very legal in the US. The last legal case that was referred to was in 2019 when the UN tried to ban it, and they simply say that it is protected by the First Amendment. They would never say this as far as illegal. I bought lolis online. It is not.
I mean, this is the whole thing. Like, okay, it's not illegal. It's not illegal to buy. It's protected by the First Amendment. Does that mean it doesn't have an impact, though? Like, there's lots of things in history that have been legal. It doesn't. That's not really a good argument. I don't understand why people go down this road, honestly, because it doesn't address the principle. It's just appeal. It's just an appeal to authority, appeal to power. Like, well, they say it's okay. They say that you can do it. So I mean, fuck. I guess.
Not illegal.
That's time. It's 11 minutes.
It's just like it's a borderline like libertarian argument, especially because once you start reading about people that are public-facing pedophiles that advocate for the lowering of the age of consent, etc., you find out that they're all libertarians, like very hardcore anarchist type libertarians, and oftentimes they make these kinds of arguments about, like, well, the legality of something. So if we could just make it legal, or we could just get away from the state entirely, then it would be okay. The state and the law is just the barrier from us experiencing something that's not harmful. Well, that's not true. That's obviously not true.
I can give you maybe another 20 seconds if you want to conclude.
Just conclude really fast. And the case they had that adjudicated Lolicon as complete was Ashcroft vs. Free Speech Coalition.
You got it.
That's it.
With that, want to say thank you very much for those opening statements. We are going to jump into open dialogue.
Trauma says it's always kind of amusing when people appeal to amendments, specifically since they undermine their own arguments by pointing out that this is part of amended text. Yeah, it's like things change, you know?
If you happen to have any questions, folks, you can submit them via the Q, or I should say, if you have any questions for the Q&A, which will follow the open discussion, you can tag me with @ModernDayDebate in the live chat, or you can also do a super chat, in which case we push those questions.
Also, just props to Modern Day Debate. It's a great channel if you like debates and stuff like that. And this dude down here on the bottom left seems like the nicest guy in the world. He's the moderator for all this. He runs all this stuff. And they have some really interesting stuff that is way more interesting than what we're watching. But there's oftentimes like really seriously substantial, like philosophical and religious debates. There's a lot of good stuff on that channel. I would definitely recommend checking out Modern Day Debate. Trami says, quote unquote, I mean, the old version was stupid, but this version is written in stone.
questions to the top of the list. And with that, thank you very much. I, Hypocrite, and Evad, the floor is all yours for that open dialogue.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out there in his opening statement is that he claimed he had like debunked or refuted something I had said, which is that there hasn't been any research done, any kind of objective empirical research on whether or not lolicons have pedophilic tendencies. And then he showed some studies, reports. He showed some reports claiming to refute that, but they don't actually refute that. If you do a report on what evidence
none of what he showed refuted anything. It's just reports of people saying like, well, some people report that they find this useful as a coping tool. That's it. They're self-reports.
Available. And you come back and you say, well, we couldn't find any evidence. That doesn't mean you actually conducted the research. That just means you looked to see if anybody else had conducted the research, couldn't find the research, and said the research doesn't exist. But again, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So a report saying we couldn't find any evidence that these guys doesn't mean they actually conducted a study where they took them, hooked them up to phallometric testing or a polygraph or something like that, and actually tried to determine whether or not they're pedophiles. So that's the first thing, and I don't know if you want to respond to that, but
I do.
Okay.
Even if you think that's like someone saying there is absence of evidence, if there was evidence, this would be show up. When they look into it, if there was evidence, it would be show up.
No,
they,
you don't.
If there was evidence, it would show up. No, if nobody's done the study, then there's no evidence. That's his entire argument. So they haven't done it, and they self-admit that they haven't done it. That Vice documentary we watched on Monday, the guy who's like a official from the Japanese government says, "No, we haven't done the tests. We haven't done any studies. We don't know. We just know it's legal, it's protected, and you should go away." Tarami says he said polygraph, and I lost all respect I had. No, well, hey. Well, there's got to be some type of measurement. I agree. Polygraph, not a great one. Not a great one at all.
They should see it. Or they just
like, I don't know how else you find this evidence without just cross-referencing people that are abusers and their purchase history, or what they have on their computers, etc. I feel like that would be the determinant factor. Have they bought Lolicon? Do they have it on their computers, etc.? That would point you at least somewhere. But most of the time that a lot of these crimes, they do find Lolly, but it's amongst real child pornography. So the Lolly stuff always gets kind of pushed to the side. I don't know if he said that in his opening. Maybe he did. But that's often the case. They will find people that are abusers that get arrested for abusing kids. And they will find Lolly, but they also find child porn, which obviously, in the hierarchy of bad things, that obviously comes first. Travis says, yes, you need to dig into all the cases. I agree. And I don't know why somebody hasn't done this. Because, like, you know, if you were to just think about it, like if you were to infer something or intuit something, you would be like, yeah, people that jerk off to this stuff, there's probably a chance that they have pedophilic tendencies at the very least. I don't know how you measure that, though. Like, you can't crawl into people's fucking brains. A lot of this stuff has to be either self-reported or because of a crime happens. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Don't sit on a desk and say, "Yeah, I think so," and then write the document. That was not what happened.
Do you know what a meta study is, or like a meta-analysis, right? It's when you look at all the studies you have available and then you draw conclusions you can from that studies. If you look and there's no studies, you can't draw conclusions. So then the report will state we couldn't draw this conclusion because the evidence doesn't exist. Right? Show me the research where they actually tested lolicons to see if they're pet. It's not a thing.
No, you don't.
You can't analyze the studies and then determine there's not adequate research. What do you mean it's not a thing?
Let me say, you cannot say that you can only have some science if it is a study. That's not a thing. It's a science because the experts saying. You sit an expert, so I'm sitting an expert.
You
didn't sit a study.
I don't know if you're
you
being
intentionally expert.
If you're being
you
intentionally obtuse here, why don't you define for us the methodology that they used to determine whether or not lolicons
What's the
are pedophiles?
methodology?
The methodology was self-reporting. That's what the methodology was. As far as what that guy showed, it was self-reporting and anecdotes. That's what the methodology that was used in the things that this IVAD guy brought up. Trauma says, yeah, and it's hard to build any confidence. Did the lolly come before, or did it come at a later stage? Well, if you like to reference back to the documentary we watched on Monday, the guy that was the pedophile, the offending pedophile, that said he got into lolly, he said that he had a predilection for children before he ever saw a lolly. And then he saw lolly because it was legal. He had access to it. You know, he was sexually aroused by it, and it was too much. Like, he couldn't handle just jerking off to pictures. He had to go and abuse children. And it was the wildest story too, because the guy got like 2 years probation. He actually I think he reported himself, and the Japanese government gave him, I think, 18 months or 2 years of probation, and that was it. He didn't go to jail. He didn't do anything. I mean, I guess maybe because he self-reported to the police. There was no actual, like, accuser. I don't know.
That your expert used it to say that it was necessary to diagnosis.
In that study,
yes,
that was
not a study, by the way. It's not a study. But continue.
Well, it is.
No, it is not.
You're right. It's an article. It's a published article in the journal.
See what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying. So it was a recommendation from an expert. I agree.
Yeah,
it's not empirical evidence. I agree. I agree.
So why are you trying to discard my argument, but your argument is the same?
No, I'm saying you acted as if you listen. You acted as if you had refuted me and shown that they have researched this and found that there's no link, but that's not true. The research doesn't exist.
The research exists. You didn't just cited one. I have many citations left.
Okay, so again, then, if you're going to claim that the research exists, I'll ask you to lay out the methodology that they used in the research.
I can give you some here. Let me check.
He's going to shoot it over. He's going to shoot it over real quick. Tarami says, maybe lolly should come with, like, seek help banners in it. Yeah, like, kind of like those, like, smoking is bad for you on cigarettes. Yeah, like the tarred lungs and stuff.
For instance, they found out, they studied the history of lolicons. And, of course, on the 80s, when child pornography was still legal on Japan, they had a huge magazine. It was the biggest magazine ever on Japan.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. That's the thing worth mentioning. Child pornography was not illegal in Japan until the late 80s, apparently. So they have it's a cultural thing, and they have, like, the lolly is a workaround for the absence of real child pornography. I mean, I'm not an expert, but that is what I have gathered from looking into this stuff recently. Trami says, quote unquote, if this excites your crotch area, phone 1-800-HELP. Help us.
Japan that has Lolicon, and it also is used to run together with child pornography on it, pictures of it. And Lolicons actually ran out of it and pressured the magazine. Was still legal. They pressured the magazine to remove the contents. And this is not just the child pornography.
Okay, well, that's an anecdote. That's not.
No, it's not. It's
research.
the biggest. No. It is, because it's not just one case. I'm not citing one anecdote of one dude. I'm citing the biggest magazine ever on Lolicon. It's the very magazine that gave birth to the term otaku. It's the biggest one. It's not just a small anecdote of one dude.
But it's not.
So people that read this otaku magazine, originated the term otaku, petitioned this magazine to stop carrying lolly or child porn. So that's an argument for what? That some people in Japan aren't perverts? What?
It's still not. What you're saying is not scientific research. That's public.
Of course, it's scientific.
That's just like
research.
Public opinion. What do you mean it's scientific research?
Not. How is
a
not?
bunch of lolicons who liked this magazine, asked them to stop publishing the child porn. That's your argument, right?
My argument is pre-pressure. Yeah, pre-pressure. And that's
Like
the
that's an
majority.
anecdote. That's an
It's not an
anecdote.
anecdote. It's not one dude.
What do
It's
you mean
not
it's
one
not an
dude.
anecdote.
Because it's not one dude. It's not one individual. It's the biggest magazine ever.
But we don't. So, what was the percentage of the users who were lollies? Like this is
Where lol is not.
Trump says, I will give my blessing to skip through this video. Well, it's actually, I think the debate's only like another half hour or so. Well, we got to, like, I want to hear the actual, what arguments do you make? I mean, I understand that there's going to be a circular nature to it, but I've never really, because I don't, this is not a world I traffic in. I don't really know much about people that support Lolicon, etc., other than just gleaming bullshit on the internet. But we may have to suffer. We may have to suffer through, dude. It's Nightcap, baby.
Nobody's
you
lollies,
can't look
bro.
at the
Who is
data.
lollies? Lollies is the character, not the people.
Oh, sorry,
What are you talking about?
Lolicons.
You don't even know the definition.
Yeah, I use those terms interchangeably. I don't think people are too worried about the technical aspects of the term. Okay. There's no research. We agree. We can put that aside.
I just say that is, and I showed you that is.
Well, I guess the audience can
You
determine
can't
for themselves
discard
whether or not they
scouting
consider
a
your
whole-
anecdote to be a study.
It's a whole magazine. The biggest one. It's not a dude. That is not how anecdote works.
So you're describing you're describing like a movement at best. You're saying this was like a movement of the Lolicons. That's still not a scientific study, but a study, an actual methodology would be like something that I described, where they would like do phallometric testing or the lie detector test, something like that, to determine whether or not there's actually a correlation. That would be real research. But I wanted to ask you about something else you said in your opening, which is you said something like the lolly can be older than the lolicon, and therefore, okay. But so what I said was that for the stuff I'm talking about like explicitly underage. So when you say the lolly can be older, are you talking about lollies that are like older than 12? For that argument,
lollies can be literally any age.
Right. So that's not so you're not talking about like the lolly can be 12 and the lolicon can be like 6 or something. Like that would be silly, right?
The lolly can be 18, the lolicon can be 16, and then you are still a lolicon for it.
Okay. Well, if the lolicon's 18, it's not really if the lolly is 18, then it's not really pedophilic. So I want to go back to the thing that I said in my opening, which is that I want to focus.
That's not how it works.
What? Sorry. So I just want to ask you your opinion on this, though.
So this guy wants to group all Lolicon together. Some of it is not offensive. Therefore, all Lolicon is technically fine. Because there's different people that engage with it of different ages, etc. I don't know what kind of argument is that.
I want to confirm this with you.
Sure.
If we're going to focus on the like extreme end of the spectrum, which is explicit and pornographic material that depicts children, right? Like, do you agree that that's a thing?
That is, Lolicon does not depict children. Lolicon does not depict children.
Lolicon does not depict children. No, because they're 400-year-old vampires. Trauma says, I'm getting the feeling they kind of have the same argument but focus on different ends of the spectrum. Kind of, I think so. There's a little bit of speaking past each other, but I do feel like the speaking past each other is more on the Lolicon side than on the I Hypocrite side. Because he's trying to make a distinction. He's like, yeah, I understand that there's different modes, like there's different variations of this stuff, and I'm focusing on the heinous stuff, the clearly prepubescent girls that are being raped, etc.
So if it's what I mean by depict children is drawings of children.
Drawings of what children?
So he's saying because it's not a literal child, like a child didn't model for these pictures, and the only people that model for Lolly are older women that look younger, then there's no problem. Even though abstractly, like if you were to take like an older woman that's like 22 that looks like she's 12, and then you were to draw her, you would expect people to know, well, that's a 22-year-old. That's a 22-year-old girl. What are you talking about? The model's 22. Yeah, I know all these futuristics and stuff that we're representing here in the Simulacrum are, that's how it is. But like, this is really a 22-year-old. So, checkmate, buddy. Kato says, I'm out for the night. We'll catch the rest later. See you later, Kato. Tarami says, that seems to be the argument. Yes, I will have to keep Shaun company or he'll go off the deep end, I think. Oh, boy. You never know. Always on the edge.
A drawing depicting a child.
Fictional, pay attention. A fictional character is not a human being. It's not a child. You don't constitute the definition of a child. If I draw on paint right now and I make a little sticky man, I put 11 over his head, he's not a child.
Yeah, but that's... This guy's like, it's so fucking retarded. It's such a simple concept. Something that looks like a child, that is drawn to represent a child. In the fantasy, in the mind of a person, they are identifying it as a child. This is not that hard to understand. And this guy will just keep obfuscating and keep throwing bullshit and the age of the models and blah, blah, blah. And that no children are actually used as models for these lollies and blah, blah, blah. It's fucking retarded. It's fucking retarded.
Child. That's a fictional character.
I understand that a drawing is not a literal human being.
Not literal, just a basic sense. Just a basic sense of the word child.
It's a drawing.
Trauma says that was the argument he wanted to make with the Simulacrum. That's because it doesn't depict real individuals. It's not CP. Yeah, exactly.
Drawing of a child. It's
no, what child?
The character is a child. So
the character? The character is not a child.
You're saying you cannot draw a child. That's your position.
No. You can draw a child. You can come if I have a daughter, someone else can make a drawing of my daughter, and that is by definition a drawing of a child. But if I draw a fictional character, that is not a drawing of a child. When you say a drawing of a child,
yeah, because fictional characters cannot be depictions of children. It's impossible. You can't not draw a childlike picture. So I guess, this guy should alert everybody that works for Studio Ghibli and let them know that the characters in the Studio Ghibli movies, My Neighbor Totoro, those aren't children. Those aren't actually children. They're not supposed to represent children. I mean, like, what the fuck?
We like the child.
Okay, so... I'm sorry. I'm gonna gather myself here. So let's say somebody. Okay, here's a question for you. How do you know that the lollies are not inspired by real children?
I can give you reference right now. See if you let me share screen.
Let me rephrase it. Is it theoretically possible that a lolly could be?
Trami says Mononoke, not a child. That's true. Princess Mononoke rocks.
Inspired by a real child.
I mean, yes.
Okay, so it is possible, and you wouldn't really have any way of knowing unless the person told you or something like that, right?
Same with any kind of form.
Okay, right. Okay, so let's say, for the sake of argument, again, I'm just trying to do the most steel man, the most worst example. So let's say somebody has a daughter or their friend has a daughter who's 6 years old. They draw a lolly based off of that child, and they depict the girl getting raped. And then they traffic that on pornographic websites for people to masturbate to, right? Would that be a pornographic depiction of a child?
That's identifiable as a child, yes.
Okay.
So it has to be identifiable as the child that you were inspired from. That's his criteria. If it's not, well, then it's not the same.
Okay, so we agree then that there can be lollies, which are pornographic drawings depicting children in sexual situations. So would you consider somebody who masturbates to those to be pedophiles?
If they're conscious about it, yes.
If they're conscious about it. If they have a conscience about it. If they're conscious of the fact that this was inspired by a real child, that's very different than a drawing that isn't. Bullshit.
If they're conscious about that,
if they know about it. If I draw a stick man right now and I say, oh, I'm not going to say anything, but I have friends a real child right now, and then somebody masturbates the stick man and they don't know about it, that doesn't make them a pedophile.
He said if I were to draw a stick man, you were to masturbate to it, but I didn't tell you it was supposed to be my representation of a child. Like, this is how pedantic this dude's getting. This is how desperate he's getting. Nobody thinks that. Like, obviously not. Like, we're talking about realistic, well, semi-realistic interpretations or pictures of kids. It's just not difficult. It's just not that difficult. Tarami says, holy shit, I would not enter one of these debates. No, because you're not going to convince this person. I mean, which is not the point of a show like this, a debate show like this. You're not going to convince them of anything, but you got to be there to make the argument, expose the thought process, because this is very weak. It's very weak. I'm not, the crazy thing is, Hypocrite is not even mounting a crazy, hardcore, good defense on his side. He's not, because he doesn't even have to. This guy just brings up crazy shit that is so outside of like just normal thought processes. Like it's such like a weird, bizarre labyrinth of rationalization that he doesn't even have to say anything really. He just has to let this person talk. That's it. That's all you have to do. Just ask them probing questions.
So they have to know that it's a child. I mean,
yes. Oh,
okay.
You're going to say that masturbated to a stick man is pedophilia right now?
To a stick man?
Yes.
Well, you know what it would be pedophilic if you were to say to the person, "Hey, the stick drawing is a child." Does that turn you on? And then their imagination takes over the rest. Then yeah, I guess it would be pedophilic and under those circumstances. But if you were just to show a person a stick figure and they masturbated to it, no, it wouldn't be. Is this like that fucking difficult? Some fucking galaxy brain stuff.
I mean, well, the thing is you can
yes
just
or no?
use your imagination.
Yes or no? Because it's your argument.
Well, you can use your imagination, right? So that's the problem, is it's hard to know what is in somebody's mind.
I mean, pedophilia by definition is the fantasies with children, like biological children. You can look at the stick man and then imagine a child, actual child, and then be a pedophile about it.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you a question. Is this avatar that this person's using for this debate, does this look like a child? Would he say this is not a child? This is not a artistic interpretation of a child? He'd be like, no, dude. That's a 30-year-old woman. Have you seen the model? Have you seen the model?
But on the behalf of being a stick man alone and masturbating towards the stick man, you agree it's not pedophilia. Even if it's the person that makes the stick man draw it reference on a child by some reason.
Sorry?
You agree that the stick man does not make somebody a pedophile necessarily, correct? Even if the person that drew the stick man is going to reference that on a child, correct?
Trauma says, like I said, with manga, it's hard to tell, which I guess is telling in itself. Well, it's because it's a cultural thing. Like, if you were to actually, like, think about the idea that, like, child pornography was not actually outlawed in Japan until the late 80s, it's probably informed a lot of art, a lot of things, a lot of tradition, and now that's what it is. It's a tradition of the art form now that's seeped in there. Obviously, though, because of modern culture, etc., like, it's way more hardcore, dude. But, it's crazy. Like, even back in the 90s, they had this stuff. The guy that they interviewed for that documentary, he'd been doing lolly rape stuff. And I'm not talking about where it's ambiguous. Like, oh, they could be, who knows? Are they 15? Are they 25? Who knows? Who can say? No, it's like clearly like children. It's clearly like 8-year-olds. Even in the text of the stories, it's like 8-year-olds. And a lot of the times, the children are the ones that are asking for it. They will get gang raped, and then the 8-year-old character will come to a conclusion at the end of the story that they actually wanted it and that they liked it. Like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck? What do you think that is for? Oh.
Sorry, if they reference this, if they're not referencing the stickman for a child, they're not a pedophile. Oh, look, man, it's hard for me to relate to because I don't jerk off to cartoons. It's hard for me to understand.
It's hard for me to relate to. I don't jerk off to cartoons, man. Tremmy says, I think this is the darkest nightcap I've been on. We went from you think this is creepy to this. All right, I know, for real. Honestly, the darkest one I've ever done. The one that I even had a hard time with was I did one a while ago, a few months ago, just about trans children and the movement behind trans children, etc. And I actually did a pretty good job. I actually produced that episode in the sense where I actually had like a logical start and stop point for it. But that was a tough one for me, even for me.
Take the question, yes, sir.
I don't even. I'm trying to understand what you're saying. I'm really.
Simply, I'll have formulate. You have a stickman. The person that drew the stickman make the reference on an actual child.
Right. Also, the stickman's inspired by a child. I got you. Okay. Yes.
But it's just a stickman. It doesn't have anything special. And then someone else looks at this.
So if you're a bad artist and you draw a stickman that's inspired by a real child, does that make the person that jerks off to it a pedophile? This is where the argument is. I mean, come on.
Stickman, oh my God, that's so hot. And they masturbate to stickman, and they don't know about it.
Right.
Is that person a pedophile?
I mean, I can't guarantee that they are, but it's sort of a ridiculous hypothetical because I don't think people are jerking off.
Don't fight the hypothetical.
Right.
Answer.
Okay, I'll say no. I guess not.
Okay.
We couldn't guarantee it. That's right. Okay.
Finally.
Okay, so here's why
I would not concede that argument. I think that's bullshit to concede that argument. The stupid hypothetical stickman argument, don't concede to that. Because it's all about it's in the eye of the beholder. Is the person engaging with the stickman picture, are they picturing a child or not? Just like if you were to look at Lolly of a young, looking like 11-year-old kid, are you envisioning that as a child or not? Fuck you.
Jerk off to drawings that look like children. Why do that? Why not just jerk off to it'd be better not to use porn at all, not to masturbate. But if you're gonna do it, why not do it to drawings that look like adults?
They don't look like children to me. They look like children to you.
Okay, so you don't.
They don't look like children to me. They don't look. This picture, this avatar right here, it doesn't look like a child to me. It doesn't. A little schoolgirl outfit, soft, undeveloped features. Oh my goodness.
I don't think that there's any lolly that looks.
Trummy says, then what is the point? Dude, we're both being driven crazy.
Like a child. I don't know.
No, I don't. If they look realistic, they're not a lolly.
That seems a little bit disingenuous.
No, that's entirely subjective.
Okay, well, I guess we could ask a jury of your peers at some point what they think. But speaking of which, let's speak to the legal question.
Sure.
You said it's not illegal because you have imported Lolicon.
No. I said it's not illegal because the UN tried to ban it in 2019 in US, Austria, and Japan. Categorically said it is protected by their freedom of speech laws. And this is official. I give you the source. You can return the video later. You can read it.
The UN?
The UN tried to ban it, and the US responded saying it is typically protected by the First Amendment. That's not a discussion that we need to have.
No, it isn't. This is a
no. It's not. Illegality of
it. The legality
of it is not matter for
yes.
the clinical
definition. We're discussing the legality for sure because it's not.
Travis says, "quote unquote." I like how they look because they look like like fictitious characters legally distinct from children.
Not legal if it's obscene. That's why people go to jail for it, right?
Obscenity is a joke law. It matters by case basis. It's not a blanket ban on literally anything. There is 90,000 obscenity cases. You're not going to sit here and tell me that going to Pornhub is illegal because some porn was banned.
We're gonna make it illegal. That's coming down.
Oh, so you admit it's not illegal? Thank you, bro. Thank you.
No, porn. We're talking porn.
He thinks this is a big dunk on him. He's like, yeah, this guy is he's anti-porn. He wants to make porn illegal. 100% he does. But that's not the topic of conversation. And him saying, like, I think all porn should be illegal is really not an indicator of anything, because you're specifically talking about the pedophilic nature of some Lolicon. So come on now.
Porn is not illegal currently, but I'm talking about obscene depictions of children. Right?
That is not
obscene drawings of children in sexual activities is illegal.
That is 90,000 kids. I'll repeat you. 90,000 kids of obscenity. And there is like 2 or 3 on cartoons. You are not claiming that porn or me going to a Pornhub is illegal. Why are you claiming that lolly hentai is illegal?
Because people go to jail for it in the US.
People go to jail for obscenity for porn too, bro. You're not addressing the argument.
What does that matter? So if people go to jail for obscene regular porn and they also go to jail for obscene lolly porn, which I don't know if that's true. I feel like this is a bad road to go down in terms of legality because it is, in most cases, protected speech. It's just not like really worth arguing. This is kind of a mute point at the moment. I mean, like, you don't have to make the legal argument just seems stupid. You want to make a moralistic argument for something, like an ethical argument for something like this about its effect on culture, etc. Like getting into the muddy waters of whether or not it's legal and what is and isn't okay. If you're not a lawyer, it just kind of seems stupid. Tarami says, I like how he says currently. Stay hopeful, friend.
What do you mean?
I will repeat it one more time. There is 90,000 cases of obscenity. There is like 3 on cartoons. Why are you not saying that every other case is telling me that is a blanket ban on porn?
Right. So, well, this goes back to what I said.
So he's saying why? Because there's 90,000 cases of obscenity. He's claiming only like 3 or 4 of them are cartoons, which seems weird, but that's what he's saying. He's saying, so there's so many, so why wouldn't they just ban porn? If there's so many cases of obscenity, why wouldn't you just ban porn? Because, like, if you're making the argument that, like, well, there's some obscene lolly, so we should just ban lolly. Which I don't think is really what his argument was, actually, in the beginning. Again, he said, I don't really have interest in the gray area. In the kind of more mainstream manga area. He's talking about the really heinous, violent depictions of rape, etc., of characters, of simulacrums that are clearly supposed to be identified as like children, prepubescent children. Trembling says, good rule of thumb is if it involves adults having sex with minors, it should be illegal. No, maybe what medium it is. I would agree with that, honestly. I don't find the utility in watching or looking at pictures of adults raping children, period. I don't. I mean, like, there's like the slippery slope argument about like, well, then who gets to determine what is obscene, and that becomes subjective, and then that gets broadened out until everything's illegal. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I really buy that, but whatever.
In my opening statement, which is I'm talking about stuff on the far end of the spectrum, right? I'm not talking about like the Sailor Moon cartoon or whatever. I'm talking about explicit, obscene drawings of children in sexual activities.
And how do that address me saying that's like 8,099 cases of pornography being considered obscene, and you not saying that is illegal categorically because of it?
Right, but the obscene stuff is illegal. That's the point.
Oh my god! You do.
No, he just answered your question. There's 90,000 cases of obscenity. They're being vetted out in court. So the obscene stuff is illegal. What is this guy not understanding? Travis says, I think intent matters, but it quickly becomes a quagmire of line drawing. It does, unfortunately. Trembling says, everything else can be debated whether it's obscene or not, but we should all agree sex with minors is obscene and always will be. 1,000% agree, dude. 1,000% agree.
Realize that obscenity in legal terms is not the same as in logical terms, right?
What is
Trembling follows up with any depiction of it too. I mean, that's what I think. I mean, I always will err on that. I don't see the utility of it. I don't see how that could possibly be a good thing for anyone to consume that kind of art and material. I don't understand, like I understand the argument about it. It's like, well, it's not a real person, it's just a drawing, etc. But yeah, that's not the effect it has on the people that consume it. It clearly isn't, and it's clearly a workaround.
What is obscenity in logical terms? Yeah, I understand there's like legal tests for what is determined.
Yes,
to be
there is a
obscenity.
Miller test. Yes,
Right,
there is
right.
a test for it.
Right. And I also understand that when people are brought in front of a jury and the jury sees the cartoon children that they're masturbating to, the juries then decide to send those people to jail.
Literally who?
Who are the people?
Yes, who the people in US that did that? There is not a single case of conviction in
No, he's asking literally who, like who has been convicted based on Lolicon.
US that was not by somebody who already had actual child porn.
No, that's not true. There's
True.
two.
Tell me one.
There's-
Tell me one.
I'll tell you two. Christopher Handley and
Handley-
Thomas Allen Arthur.
Oh my God. I think Handley is the bald man. Is the bald man? I think if he
I don't
Handley
know
is
if
the
he's
bald
bald.
man.
Is he a bald man? So he's very familiar with these cases because this is where his mind is. He has to go to these extremes and he has to familiarize himself with all of these things because this does not sound like something he prepared for the debate. This is because this is what he does. This is what he talks about. This is what he advocates for. This is his life's fucking work. Oh, fucking cool shit, dude.
I'm
Yeah,
not that deep into it.
I think there is two cases. One, the guy had actual pornography, and the other was a plea guilty. It was not a conviction.
Yeah, you're right. That's Handley. He did also have real child porn, and he had Lolicon, and he was convicted for
Yes, yes.
both. Right. So that's one example of a guy being convicted for having
Yes,
Lolicon.
Not
And the
solely
other-
on Lolicon.
What?
Not solely on Lolicon.
Yeah, well, he also,
That is
he
not a
also had
single
child
case of
porn. I'm
solely.
not sure the fact that the Lolicon also had real child porn supports your argument that much. But
Supports.
it's true. He did.
Supports because you don't.
Tremmy says, on the upside, my download of Magnum Muslim 357 just finished. Is that a movie? Damn, I gotta maybe I'll check that out. Trembling says there should be no comfort for pedos, no surrogates. They should have themselves chemically castrated or off themselves. And the chemical castration is not even a guarantee. It's not even a guarantee. Trembling says that it's even a debate shows how far down the barrel we are as a society. Well, because there is that's what kind of makes this interesting right now, because there is a definite push, at least in the United States, to normalize this stuff, to normalize these concepts, these ideas, these predilections. Making excuses, making rationalizations for it. The trans stuff is folded into it because it's all about consent, the notion of consent and how young somebody can be to consent to something, to sexualize themselves. Yeah, it's something that definitely should be looked at. And I think the fact that it's a cartoon or a drawing or whatever does not mean it's not worthy of interrogation. Tarami says a 1986 Philippine movie. Yes. Oh, damn. Cool.
That is just by being a Lolicon, just having Lolicon. You have to get something else, or you need to plead guilty, like
Okay, and what about the other guy, Thomas Allen Arthur?
Thomas Allen Arthur was the guy that pled guilty.
No, he didn't plead guilty. He was convicted by a jury of his peers.
Let me see. Let me look it up. I'm pretty sure there is only two cases and one is the pled guilty. Thomas Alan Arthur.
The guy we just talked about pled guilty, Christopher Hanley. He had porn and Lolicon, and he pled guilty to all counts. Thomas Alan Arthur was convicted by a jury of his peers and sentenced to 40 years in prison.
Again, I really think this is a dumb road to go down when debating somebody like Ivad. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's illegal or not. It really doesn't. Whether or not people have been arrested for it. I mean, it could matter. I said, well, I guess I take that back. It could matter for sure. You would think that there'd be a propensity of cases that would prove this out. But as he has kind of indicated, like, oftentimes when people are found with lolly, they're also found with real child pornography. So that's maybe the information, the data kind of gets skewed because of that. Trembling Color says, I was on an 80s Philippine ninja movie kick a few years ago. This director, Godfrey Ho. Oh, I know that name. Godfrey Ho. Godfrey Ho. I believe I've seen some of his movies. Actually, I think I might have been introduced to him from Red Letter Media. Does that make sense? I know the name.
And he was convicted in 2021 as well, this guy. So this isn't like old news. This is recent with the up-to-date laws.
Like I see over here, he had other issues as well. It was not solely based on Lolicon as well. He had assaulted females, had done a lot of stuff that actually categorically making him more likely to be charged with stuff. That is still not just on Lolicon.
No. So after he was,
I mean, is the important factor that it's just Lolicon? I guess because they got in this stupid semantic debate, which I, hypocrite, totally just walked into. This dumb semantic debate about whether or not somebody just has Lolicon. Has somebody been arrested for Lolicon? Probably not. Probably not, because it is protected. In the United States, Lolicon is protected under the First Amendment. It is. It is. Trembling says CinemaSob did a lot of his stuff too. If you ever watched him, I did, and that's probably where I heard him from. Yeah, he did Undefeatable, which has been on Red Letter Media. Yeah, that's true. Spoonie too. Yeah, Spoonie. Actually, yeah, probably Spoonie, CinemaSnob, and Red Letter Media. That's probably where I came into contact with old Godfrey Ho.
He was convicted, it came out that he had in fact molested a child, but that's not what he was charged with and brought to court. That came out after. Which again, it's a bad look. This guy who just is, he's charged for trafficking in fictional material only. That he wasn't charged for real child porn. He wasn't charged for sex. He was charged for trafficking this fictional material, and he was convicted. And then it came out afterwards that he had also one of his victims came forward after he was arrested and charged, and it came out that he had sexually molested a child. I can read the link, or I can give the link here.
Additionally, according to court documents and statements made at the sentencing, Arthur sexually assaulted 2 females. So it was not after.
During the investigation of the case, right?
Yeah, it was not after.
After he was arrested, yeah.
No, it was after the sentence. It was before the sentencing. It was.
Yeah, it was during the trial, during the case. That's when these things came to light. But they originally booked him on trafficking and these degenerate Lolicon shit.
It was taken into observation that as well. It was not just solely on Lolicon. If that was even Lolicon, because Victor child pornography has a really, really wide blanket.
He wasn't charged for sexual assault or molestation. He was charged.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when somebody is charged with something like obscenity. They look up their history and what they have, and then they decide if he's due or not.
Right.
Yeah, because if a jury is going to have access to his prior history, if it's relevant, they'll have access to his prior history, his prior arrests, prior crimes, etc., to see if there's a pattern of behavior. Yes, wild shit.
Right, so you agree that it's illegal, but your argument is that they're not going to come after you as long as you don't like.
No, I
do
don't
other
agree it's
things.
illegal.
That's
It's
it.
not illegal. Obscenity
We
does not...
just objectively.
Which I don't think it is illegal. Actually, I do agree with Ivad. Unfortunately, I don't think it's actually illegal. At least not in the United States. Trembling says, I like how he usually meshed two separate movies together that had nothing to do with one another. Trami says, also, if it's an Asian movie with the word ninja in it, 50% chance it's a Godfrey Ho movie. I'll have to check out some of his stuff. I don't think I've actually ever watched any of them. I've probably just seen people talk about them.
Proved it's illegal because of the sentencing.
No, obscenity law is case by case basis. It's not a blanket ban or anything. You're going to say that porn is illegal because there's 8,000 cases of obscenity charges for porn?
No, but we're talking about the obscene stuff, right? And the
Is
thing
obscenity. Obscenity law also includes pornography.
Listen.
Pornography
Here's the thing about when it comes to these Lolicon convictions.
Come on.
Again, there's other ones in other countries as well. What the thing is that they've never convicted anybody for Lolicon that depicted adults or like manga, sexual hentai. Is that what it's called? Hentai? They've never convicted anybody for looking at hentai that depicts adults. Every single of these convictions, it's because it was depicting children.
Trembling says, or that might have been Bruno Mattei. Not sure. I get the stuff confused. Bruno Mattei was a Cinema Snob thing. Yeah, Doug Jones covered. He had like a series, if I'm not mistaken. Oh boy, now I'm feeling fucking old. But yeah, it was like 2009, 2010, 2011, where he would like get together with his friends. They would go to a restaurant or something. They would talk about Bruno Mattei movies. Trami says, I have a theory that he shot like 200 scenes in January every year, then spent 11 months editing them together to 10 movies a year. Yeah.
So that's where the jury's draw the line, right? That's where you're crossing the obscenity line, is when you're jerking off to drawings of children.
No. Obscenity does not use cartoons. Why? The 14668.
Nobody says it's just cartoons. Like, what the fuck is this guy even talking about? He's just saying that some lolly meets the threshold of obscenity. Like, what is so fucking difficult to understand? I mean, if you wanted to make an argument, you'd be like, well, there's not a lot of cases, so it just doesn't happen very often. That's the argument against it. Be like, well, it doesn't prove anything because there's only like 3 or 4 cases, so it doesn't prove anything. Perverts be perverts, no matter what. I mean, what the fuck?
I'm talking about Lolicon, though. I'm not talking about obscenity. I'm talking about.
But you talk about obscenity. You talk about obscenity charges. Obscenity charges do not just.
Yes, obscenity charges for Lolicon. That's what we're talking about.
No, I'm talking about everything.
When does Lolicon cross the line into illegal obscenity? The answer is when it's depicting children in explicit
you were trying to say that because somebody was charged.
Hold on one sec. Just to be sure.
Hold on, you guys are talking over each other. Trembling says Albert Pyun, rest in peace, would get a budget for a movie and use it to make 2 or 3 movies in the 90s. Oh, I love that kind of stuff. Cyborg, Nemesis. Actually, I haven't gotten it yet, but in the mail, I got coming in the mail the entire Nemesis collection. It was a Black Friday sale. MVD Video, their website, had those things for like $6. $6. I was like, fuck yeah, dude. I'm gonna pick up Nemesis. All of the Nemesis movies. Trami says his comics collection makes it very hard not to argue against.
Because if there's too much talking over each other, I like letting it fly because we like it wild here, but we don't like it too wild because then they can't hear you guys. So let's let LP finish that sentence, and then we'll come right back to you, and we'll give you a full 30 seconds or a minute of ad.
When Lolicon becomes illegally obscene, when it depicts children in sexually explicit situations. That's the reason I'm saying that. What I'm basing that on is the fact that that's what all of the convictions have been for. There haven't been convictions for people looking at hentai that depicted adults or demons or whatever. It's when you start doing it with children that the authorities and the juries, they say, no, you're going to jail.
Like I said, in 2019, they categorically said it's protected by the First Amendment. They would not have said that if it was illegal. And they literally use the word "not a real child" on the part when they say that. So
I don't know why you're even bringing up
finish.
the
Let me
UN
finish
at
what I'm
all.
saying.
You're talking about the UN
from
though.
Avad before we come back to you, LP.
Well, can you just be clear on what? Because nobody even knows what you're talking about. You're talking about some UN declaration, as if anybody gives a shit what the UN has to say about anything.
No. I said the UN tried to ban it, and the US responded saying it is typically protected by the First Amendment because there is no real child.
It is typically protected by the First Amendment. Typically. It doesn't mean that it's in totality.
That is factual
The UN has no authority.
Yeah,
the
US thing. The US have it. That's why I'm saying the US answer it that way. That's not the UN saying it. That's the US saying.
So you're saying Thomas Allen Arthur's conviction is unlawful? Is that
No. If you read the document, obscenity is an exception to the rule, not the rule.
Right.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. He doesn't disagree with that. Trembling says, I've only saw the first Nemesis, but it's his best one for sure. It's like one of the 90s extreme image comics as a movie, in my opinion. Oh, dude, yeah, it's great. The first Nemesis is really the only good Nemesis. I'm a movie collector, so I have to have it for posterity. I have to have the other ones because I'm a fucking weirdo. Trembling says, Cyborg is pretty solid, too. Cyborg is good. I like Cyborg. I got to get Cyborg one of these days. I got to get it one of these days. It's got a cool vibe to it. Great aesthetic, too. I love that. I love the ingenuity of those guys, those low-budget dudes back in the day. Like, oh, whatever. We'll just go find a refinery. We'll just go to the desert and just film something. It's great. Trembling says, did Pyun even make the other Nemesis? Yes, I think he did. I think he might have directed all of them. I could be wrong. I'm thinking of my brain. I know he at least did the second one, I think. But there's 4 of them altogether, I believe.
So the obscene stuff is illegal. That's what I've been saying. That's what I've been arguing. It's not. I'm not saying all lolicon or all lollies are illegal. I'm saying the obscene stuff, and even you can probably have really gross obscene stuff that a lot of people would consider obscene, but it isn't depicting children.
Let me speak. You're speaking over me too much. Let me speak.
All right. I'm sorry, but
you're not letting me speak.
Now. You're agreeing with me.
No,
now,
I'm not.
So there's nothing.
Hold on. Let's hear from Lolicon.
When they say that it was legal, they were not referencing SFW, QTZ, lolly. They were referencing pornography. The whole talk was about explicit material, not a gray area. Oh, it's just ecchi. No, that was about pornography.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't come to talk to me. That's that's what is not obscene. Like it's a logical term, it's a legal term, and that's case by case basis. It is not a blanket ban on anything, just like it's not important.
Yeah, this is a very dumb road to go down. Trembling says, I like that RLM did a good tribute to him and didn't just shit all over the movies they watched. No, I think, I'll say this about Red Letter Media. I think they're fair to pretty much everything they watch. Even like the really bad shit. They always seem like they're very fair because they're movie lovers. They love schlock. They love that kind of stuff. And they have an appreciation for the effort that it takes to make things, even things that turn out bad. So I've always really liked that about them. They're like probably one of my favorite outlets on YouTube, honestly. And like one of the very few YouTube channels that I like really love that they found success and that they're able to do it for a living, etc. I really enjoy their stuff. Trembling says, Pyun is typically a cut above their usual fare, though. Oh, for sure he is. Yeah, he's actually competent. A lot of times what held him back was just money. Trembling says, Pyun could make movies. They were just cheap and horribly schlocky. But it doesn't mean they're not fun. Doesn't mean they're not entertaining and worth watching.
Pornography.
Right, but you agree that you can go to jail for your lolicon. That's the point, right? It's possible you can go to jail for uploading these drawings to Twitter or Discord or whatever. That's the important part we need to agree on.
I just can go to jail by uploading that if I infringe someone else, like unwanted, or if I wanted sexual harassment, sexual sending stuff to people that doesn't want it, or if I have some other charges with me. So that categorically makes me a target for the charges.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong.
You didn't show me a single case.
You could go to jail. I showed you the case. No.
There was in the show. There was more stuff on the case. How the thing
he was not charged with sexual assault or molestation.
It doesn't matter. It
doesn't matter. Okay, so
they wouldn't.
Oh my God! All right, I have to. I'm gonna skip. I'm skipping ahead because this is like such a dumb avenue to go down, and I have to say, I hypocrite. I might upload this to YouTube. This was a dumb road to go down. It's just not pertinent at all. It's not about whether or not lolly is appropriate or the lolly that he's talking about.
Accurately depict the other person's argument in a charitable or strong way. So that's one reason to click on those links. This one from Lieutenant.
I just want to say in response to that chat, I'll throw him a bone here. I think he did a better job I've did than I was expecting. He brought. I'm not saying he won or that I'm convinced by his arguments, but I was expecting the arguments to be worse than they were. So I'll give him a shout out for that.
Well, he did come. He came swinging with his obtuse arguments. Sure. Trembling says his movies Radioactive Dreams and Vicious Lips have an excellent look to them, the kind of 80s look that synthwave style stuff tries to copy. Oh, I've never seen those. Radioactive Dreams and Vicious Lips. I'll have to check them out.
Juicy. And Penamat says, I think Lolicon is horrible, but I don't think it should be treated like child prawn. That's legal. A legal can of worms you don't want to open. You'll have people registering as offenders for having DVDs of Dragon Ball Z.
Based.
I like his argument. Based. Yeah, I think that's a little extreme. I don't think that's what anybody's talking about.
This one from Kiwi in Springfield says, James is still my number one OnlyFans subscriber. That's not true. Says, thanks, bud. You're awesome.
Whoa.
You asshole. No, believe it or not, I am not subscribed to anybody on OnlyFans. This one from Big Cheese says, thanks for your super sticker. And this one from Jakowski says, there it is. I, hypocrite, wants to ban all porn.
Yes.
And that could be true. It is true. And it has nothing to do with the debate. Nothing to, because they're trying to say like, oh, you want to ban all porn, so you just think everything is obscene in the same way. No, he wants to ban porn because he thinks it's bad for people with porn addictions, how it fucks with people's sexuality, etc. Especially, I guess, in the modern age where it's more and more kind of weird and extreme, and you can get in some very dark places. I've never had problems with porn, but I've known people that have had porn problems, porn addictions, and it definitely leads people into some weird places. I can say that for sure. Travis says, yeah, sorry, I lost interest a bit when they started the slap fight over technicalities. So did I. Thank you guys for bringing up Albert Pyun. Travis says, Nightcap should stream Nemesis. You know what? I might do that. I've been dying to do a movie night. I just want to do a movie night. I just want to watch the movies with you guys. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I don't know how to do it, though. I don't know if I do it Nightcap style where we pause and blah, 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 or if I just kind of level things out and do a running commentary, like try to get the audio levels correct and just do a running commentary of the movie. But yeah, I've been wanting to do that for a while, honestly. Look for it in the future.
That's correct. When I started off, I was more libertarian and was more like, well, we should just restrict it better so minors can't access it. Then I started looking into the constitutional issues, and I realized the constitutional protections weren't there. And I said, well, if that's democracy. If the people want to ban it, it should be banned. And then once you start saying that, the coomers come out of the woodwork to whine and cry. So you eventually reach a point where the reason you want it to be banned is just so these pathetic losers cry. Like, oh, what do you mean? I have a constitutional right to masturbate to videos of meth heads having sex. You can't take that away.
Honestly, that's pretty funny. That's pretty based.
You just become so disgusted by these losers that becomes the reason in and of itself to ban it, just to make them mad.
Juicy, to say the least. This one coming in from Kwani Upstate says, if possessing this material is not illegal, would Avad call the local police and tell them he has some on his computer?
Trembling says, Radioactive Dreams is on YouTube. It has unfortunately never even made it to DVD. Hopefully, since he's dead, a boutique Blu-ray company puts it out. Tarami says, Vinegar Syndrome, get on it. Yeah, they'd be the ones to do that. At least it's on YouTube, though. At least it's on YouTube. YouTube has become such a great resource to find, like, out-of-print movies. There's some real patriots out there. Some real movie fans. Keeping the dream alive. Keeping those movies out there. In fact, actually, if you go to Odyssey is completely unregulated. Dude, there are thousands of movies. Thousands of movies. It's like walking into a Blockbuster. It's like logging into Netflix. You can find almost anything you want on Odyssey. Mostly older stuff. Like, they don't put up newer movies, but any movie that came out like from 2005 back, you could probably find on Odyssey. I have found tons of stuff on there that is out of print, hard to find. It's even hard to find torrents of it. Like, I'm looking for a movie right now. I was gonna buy it, but it's out of print. The only thing that's available, I think, maybe is a Criterion DVD, and I don't buy DVDs anymore. I just can't. I have too much shit. I can't be buying DVDs. It's called Blast of Violence. It's like a gangster Christmas movie I wanted to do for a movie review for Christmas time, and I cannot find it anywhere. And all of the torrent links are dead, and it's not on YouTube, and it's not on Odyssey. It's driving me crazy. It's called Blast of Violence, I believe. Blast of Violence.
I already declared I have over here. I have no intention to sexually harass police in my department. I have no intention to do that. If sexual harassment is not cool.
You got it. This one coming in from.
I don't think.
Not Blast of Violence. I'm sorry. It's Blast of Silence. Blast of Silence is the name of the movie.
Calling the police and confessing
And saying you have
is
porn.
sexual
Hey, bro, I have porn. That's sexual harassment. That's ridiculous.
You're confessing a crime to the police. Really,
Having
so
porn.
I don't think you're.
How is that a crime?
It's obscene.
I'm not going to start over.
Trembling says, I've heard about Blast of Silence in the back of an issue of the Criminal comic. Yeah, well, that makes sense. It's like from, I think, like 1961 or something like that. I've just heard a lot of. I was like looking. If you go back on our YouTube page, I've covered like a ton of Christmas movies. I love the Christmas season, so I was looking for kind of off the beaten path Christmas-esque movies to talk about this December. And that was one that caught my eye, and I want to watch it so bad. I want to watch it so fucking bad. Travis says he found it. I will download it for you. 1961. Yes. Hey, if you can get it to download, go for it, man. Put it up on Odyssey or something and send me a link. Yeah, I couldn't get the torrent to download. I found a bunch of torrents. They're all dead.
I'll give you all the reason you need.
Huh?
I already give you all the reason you need.
Okay.
This one coming in from Dodo M says LP is projecting.
Yeah, I mean that's not the people say that all the time. That's not an argument.
It is true because he likes 15-year-old cartoons, like I said in the show.
Yeah, so
because of the Sonic cartoon. Travis says, I actually pay for my piracy, so I have some extended access, I suppose. Oh, nice. Good for you, buddy. I do not. As I've gotten older, though, I pirate a lot less than I used to. But even back in the day, I'd pirate stuff, then I just ended up buying it too. I have a sickness. Travis says, I'll put it on my Google Drive and email you a link. Hey, dude, I would be so grateful. So thank you so much, Tarami.
Posted the Sonic thing because it's cringe.
Sexual. Yes.
It's cringe.
It's furry. Child porn is fine if it's cringe.
Look, I already said.
You think it's child porn, and you posted. You think it's fine if it's.
Yeah, a picture of Sonic is child porn. Because I guess he's saying that Sonic is 15 according to the lore.
Cringe. Child porn for you is fine if it's cringe.
And it's not Sonic's like cock hanging out or anything. It's Sonic in a bath towel.
Being disingenuous here.
That's literally what you're saying. That's literally what you're saying.
Nobody thinks that. Nobody agrees with you.
This one from in the live chat. Chinese symbols that I don't understand. Thank you very much for your question. It says, ask the first guy, LP, if furries and animals are the same by his logic.
Like his furry porn
Trump says Shaun defending Sonic Lolicon. You got me. Spooky stuff. Oh, thank you, dude. There we go.
I mean, is it? I don't think looking
Zoophilic.
at so looking at furry porn doesn't make you a pedophile. It makes you a zoophile, which means you want to fuck animals. And anecdotally speaking, you have stories in the media of like manga collectors who get busted with child porn or get busted.
Okay, so you're
Yeah, no, I just brought it up. Thank you so much, Tarami. It's going to be awesome. Oh, no, Trembling sent it to me. Oh, shit. Trembling sent me the link. So, Tarami, you're off the hook. Thank you, Trembling. I appreciate it, dude.
busting
both
children.
zoophile.
Hold on. Listen. And then you have these furries or these furries who get busted like fucking their dog or doing bestialities. I mean, those are just anecdotes, but it seems to be the people who like the drawings of children end up, when they are busted, it ends up being over child porn shit. And the people who are into the drawing, they end up fucking animals. That comes out. So there does seem to be a correlation there, anecdotally speaking.
So you're a zoophile and a pedophile, okay?
You got it. This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Nicolo Diamo says, Brap, and Nighttime Lime says, how cute is funny oomphy? What does this mean?
He's very cute and funny. I just need to know that. I love cute and funny.
He loves cute and funny. He loves a good panty joke. He likes a little fan service. Likes a little fan service in his Lolicon.
Can I talk about something really quick? Is
Sure.
it possible? There is a case of somebody called Melody Duchesne in Ohio. She got 60 days in jail for damages and aggression because she was in a drive-thru for McDonald's and she aggressed some people and attacked people because they wouldn't serve her chicken nuggets. And while she was doing that, she said and screamed, "I will go Super Saiyan." That's referencing Dragon Ball Z. So technically, it is an anecdotal to show that Dragon Ball Z would have to be banned because there is somebody who was inspired for Dragon Ball Z to committing something in real life, violent act.
No, not at all. Not at all. That's not the same thing at all. That's fucking retarded.
I agree. All anime should be banned. I completely agree.
Oh my
For
god.
the common good.
Based. I say that as an anime fan. I like plenty of anime. Trembling says, you're welcome. I'm probably going to watch it late tonight too. Awesome, dude. That's awesome. I'm glad we get to share it together. Thanks for finding that for me, though. I really do appreciate it. Trami says, quote unquote, anime was a mistake.
Oh, Jesus.
This one coming in from Mike says, for both LP and Evad, thank you very much for the debate. I really appreciate your time. That's positive. Appreciate your positivity, Mike. This one coming in from Komoribi says, would that mean video games is real murder?
Oh my god. I can't do this. You know what? We're going to have to, like, video games, real murder, does it inspire real world violence, etc.? Yeah, that's the same thing as being like attracted to or titillated by images of children. These are the same things. It's these fucking lolicons. My God. Well, Trembling Tarami, I think you guys are the last man standing. Thank you so much for hanging out with me all night. It's been a lot of fun, boys, but it's 1:30 a.m. my time. I know it's fucking early for Tarami. I got shit to do. I got a wife and kids. I gotta go. Trembling says, I'm beginning to think this fellow has flimsy arguments, guys. I think you could say that. I think that's verifiable.